All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the webinar that we are organizing, scaling behind the meter flexibility. We've got three great parties, if I may say so myself, here today. We've got Elias from B, Bart from Eniris, and then be representing Companion.energy as Jonas here today. I'll start with a short introduction, a short welcome word to describe a bit what the session will be about today, and then I'll leave it also to Elias and Bart to introduce themselves a little bit further and to introduce their companies as well. That said, if you've got any questions during the webinar that we're doing now, don't hesitate to add them in the Q&A or in the chat. You can use both functionalities. Actually, I see that chat is disabled, so just use the Q&A functionality. Don't hesitate to already do it during the session if you've got any very urgent questions. And then at the end of the session, we've seen like 10 minutes. So if we've got a lot of questions, that we have some time for sure to answer all of them. All right, I'll share my screen and share the presentation. So as I said, today we have got three people here. We're working together on a lot of different projects. That's Eniris, Companion.energy, and B. As we've been working already together already for a number of customers, like to give a bit of an introduction on what does that mean, really enabling flexibility. Why or what do we do when we collaborate with us three for a certain customer, usually in the CNI, so in the industrial consumption space. So to give you an idea, we really think enabling this flexibility requires really on-site layer, a cloud optimization layer, and also an energy market layer. So that's also why we have these three parties today here. We've got Bart from Eniris, who really provide the on-site layer with a local EMS system that can directly integrate these distributed energy assets. We are working as a cloud optimization layer that make the connection between the energy market and the on-site, where we do also forecasting and short-term optimization, for example, on the imbalance market. And then we have Elias from B, who is working here as an energy, is providing here to these customers the supplier contracts, the grid mechanisms, but also let's say the energy market access. So I think as today, as we see in the market, a lot of solar installations or battery installations, definitely within the couple of megawatts, let's say from a couple of 100 kilowatts to a couple of megawatts of battery and solar systems, typically seen at, let's say, small, medium-sized businesses. They are being optimized a lot in this way. So we'd like to give a little bit more context on how that actually works and how that actually is operated by these parties. So then I'd like to give the floor to each one of you, Bart and Elias, to explain a bit more on who you are and what you do exactly. Right, Bart, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Jonas. I'm Bart Verheecke, one of the co-founders of Eniris, one of the three co-founders of Eniris. Started off in 2018, actually, with our company. The focus was first on monitoring of different assets, PV, battery, charging stations. And then in 2020, we decided to do only monitoring anymore, but also expand our activities towards energy management. So not only reading out values, but also pushing values towards assets. I have a background in electronics ICT, and so do the other co-founders have. And we decided to create some hardware for this, and we call that product Market One. And it's actually that product that is being used by B in a lot of applications. And it's also that product that Companion is now controlling as well for a lot of our customers. We focus with our company on not only end customers such as residential end customers, but also CNI, utilities with our product. And we claim to be, with our product, the most open EMS system. And the reason for that is the number of integrations we have done. We are unbeatable, to my opinion, in the number of integrations, more than 250 integrations on like devices, different brands of devices. And then as open as we are towards the different energy assets, we try to be as open as much as possible towards the different energy markets. And therefore this collaboration, right, where Companion is, like, for us, complementary towards then an energy market provider such as B is. So yeah, our typical customers are, in this context, installers, energy companies, and yeah, and that's also, we will talk a bit further about them as well. And we try to tackle every market, but for this market, enabling of this market, etc., we'll bring it up a bit further.
Yeah, great. No, that's good, Bart. Thanks for that intro. Maybe I see a lot of big numbers on the slide here.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of B2C customers, CNI customers. Like, what's making you so popular? Are you like the cheapest, the best? Like, what? How do you differentiate in this market? Or is it the amount of integrations, as you said before, that's really a differentiator for you?
Yeah, I hope it is because of the quality and the openness for which we stand. Yeah, and I these days I found to be it more and more common that people find us instead of us reaching out to them. We're quite well known, not only in Belgium, Netherlands, but also and also operational in other countries, European countries as well, with our products. Yeah. So yeah, I think the most open EMS is like something on which people actually jump, right?
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. If you can integrate with the most devices, that makes you also very easy to work with, and so a lot of people will choose you as a solution. All right, thanks.
Yeah,
That's
each brand brings in more people, right?
of course, yeah, that makes sense. All right, thanks, thanks for that, Bart. Then Elias, go ahead and give a short introduction on B, if you will.
Perfect. I will. Thanks for setting up this session and for the invitation. I think it's quite interesting to bring all of those three parties together, because together we create value for Flex, and I think one party at each other, it's way more difficult. So if you want to create value on the flexibility market, you need to have a supplier, but you also need the hardware. You also need software. So I think it's a nice package that we have. B, Belgian Eco Energy. We are energy supplier and also producer of energy. So we have our biomass plant in the port of Ghent of 20 megawatts and a lot of wind turbines in portfolio as well. And we supply for B2B businesses from small SMEs to the biggest industry in Belgium for electricity, offtake and injection, and also for gas. So that's where we try to help our customers with electricity, and also trying to help them with their energy transition. And our mission, let's say, is to help them with the energy transition at the lowest cost. So that's why Beehive came in place to help them steer the different assets on different flexibility markets. Topic of today is about scaling flexibility. It's my personal goal, but also the goal of B. So we're very good aligned on that. So we want to scale flexibility, and in different ways. So the first way we go for scale in the flexibility market is the amount of megawatts. So we want to have as much megawatts as possible that we can steer on flexible ways. So today about 60 megawatts. Next is customers. So we want to give customers access to the flexibility markets and to create value on those markets from the biggest industries, but also from smaller SMEs that want a battery or just want to get value for their solar injection again. So that's about customers. And then the third point, how we want to reach scale, is with the type of assets. So we steer a lot of solar installations and batteries, but there are other possibilities as well. For instance, today in Chimay, well-known company, of course, we installed a device to steer a wind turbine. So yeah, we want to aggregate as much or we want to be able to steer as much type of different assets as possible, from solar and batteries to wind, e-boilers, and so on. And then last but not least, we want to be integrated with it as much as possible hardware solutions, type of inverters, and that's why strong hardware partners come in place, of course.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Elias. Maybe same question for you as for Bart. Like, what makes B? Like, what's really the selling point for B? Like, what? How do you differentiate from other suppliers in this market?
Yeah, good question. We are full going in for transparency. So in the supplier market, transparency is lacking a bit. So we see an opportunity there to be honest with end customers and to create a solution that's fully transparent, and that we can get a real good relationship and a long-term relationship with our end customers. So our goal is to have a qualitative growth next years. So with clients that are happy and are staying with us. So transparency and and being flexible with steering of assets, but also flexible in another way, that if they need more support, personal support, that we can deliver support on that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Then I haven't introduced myself. I will do that with a short, according to this slide. So I'm Jonas. I'm one of the two co-founders of Companion.energy. Basically, we provide a software solution that allows our customers to really unlock cost-competitive renewable power, be that in partnership with their supplier, such as the collaboration we have with B, or be that direct. So for that, we have two parts of our software solution. We've got Prism, which brings you like just total cost transparency the whole time, and then really on this Propel, where we actively go and steer your assets to enhance your cost savings. And on the steering, that's really where this collaboration with the three of us comes together, I feel. If you want to just, for example, only optimize on the day ahead market, you could do that just with an Eniris controller. Bart takes in the signal from the day ahead market. But then, of course, if you start doing that, then Elias will be annoyed, because then you mess up his imbalance his portfolio. So that's why we then come in between to really forecast what your consumption will be, and also schedule already how you will use your flexibility day ahead. And send that information to Elias, so we turn that into really a win-win opportunity. So that's really like where you should see your role, something that will come also back to. So that was it for a short introduction. I think what we are planning to show you today are two use cases: one just for solar, and one for solar and the battery system. Cases that are live with customers of ours. And show you basically practically what does that work, how does that setup work, what kind of benefits does that bring for you as a customer. So that's what we would like to go into. A first case, and I'll explain that a bit, is a case with a larger PV installation just below 4 megawatt. Where we are basically optimizing that PV system both on the day ahead market and on the imbalance market. So you can see some screenshots from the Companion.energy platform. So here is on the top you can see the setup with local grid consumption and injection and the solar meter, and then with some actual steering on this solar installation, which was the latest from the 2nd of October. We did have some very low, let's say up to minus 500, if I'm not mistaken, imbalance prices. So accurately forecasting that, and then let's say, curtailing the solar installation during those hours actually delivers more value than just letting the solar installation produce. Maybe that's just a short introduction on like what this case is. So what does that mean in practice? What's happening? We are taking data from the solar installation. We are forecasting what it will produce for the next day. We are sending that information to Elias, and then during the day we will be further optimizing that solar installation on the imbalance market, which we continuously forecast. So maybe on the let's say the local connection of solar installations, Bart, maybe it's a good question to just ask you how does this typical setup kind of a solar PV case work, like locally, like what does that mean in terms of the connector and connection and stuff like that?
Yeah, and in some of the cases, you're good to go with just connecting with the EMS to the local network, and then over Modbus TCP, which is then one of the most common communication interfaces, can work straight away. Though one of the first things where you need actually an installer for is opening up then this communication on each inverter. So we'll end up in a scenario in which you need an installer on site to actually open up the communication with these inverters, and then scan on the EMS for those inverters, right? Second scenario is that everything works over RS485, Modbus RS485. And then you actually need to be a bit more careful about like what is the distance between the EMS module and the actual inverters. Should be nearby, or you should work with like a gateway that converts RS485 to Modbus TCP. You should also be careful with like the communication settings, the wiring in a way, since it's not like plugging in on the network. Yeah, and that makes it like you need to have an installation that is capable of communication over Modbus. We can say, well, we have like a docs page on which you can actually check also the compatibility with inverters. We did a lot of these inverters already from the past. So I think in general, if you encounter an inverter like produced after, let's say 2018, you got like an 90-ish percent chance that communication will work, right?
Okay.
And yeah, the most common brands already are like maybe 80%, representing 80% of the market.
Right.
Maybe the top 5 brands are already representing this. I'm always in favor of like using a local EMS for this as well, rather than controlling them via API directly. Since yeah, if you rely, for example, for API on a server, and they do maintenance during the weekends, which is always during the weekends,
Yeah,
you'll end up with these imbalance prices, which are incredibly high.
Yeah.
And we saw it in the past. So, to my opinion, like having then a local EMS is beneficial in that scenario.
Okay. Oh, good point. And then if I wanted to like on the first like the technical implementation things you said, like any other things that you would think about, like from our perspective, usually the most annoying thing is what happens is if the solar installation is really far from the grid connection, so then it's hard to get like both the live data from the grid connection, like good grid measurements live, and great solar data, for example. That's one. From an optimizer's perspective, that is annoying, because then we get like outdated grid data. Any topics that you wanted to say, like, okay, that's the challenge that you see when you set up the integration?
Well, yeah, and especially with curtailment, is you have to make a choice between will you curtail like in a black and white scenario, like
Yeah.
100% or 0% of PV production, or would you like to preserve self-consumption, to maintain self-consumption, right? And then the topic is the energy meter, and how do we read out the energy meter on top of the installation? And that's not always like an easy case, right? Especially if we talk about CNI applications,
Yeah.
which are typically equipped like with an older energy meter as well from the grid operator. Nowadays, they are equipped with an A1 interface, such as an interface you have at home with the P1 interface for your digital meter, and then we can read it out easily.
Yeah.
If the location is too far from the actual installation, PV installation, then there are some tricks, right? You can just put the EMS on top of the installation nearby the energy meter, and you make sure that they are connected. The EMS is connected to the local network. You will end up with like a successful project. But if you don't have like the local network nearby, yeah, then it's becoming more difficult, right? And I don't think it's like an actual good solution to preserve self-consumption in that case. Since if you would push them, your local measurements towards the cloud, and also use them, the same cloud, to read out those measurements and then to do curtailment, it's a dangerous scenario, right? What if there is an outage? Should you shut down the solar production, or should you actually ignore this? So yeah, those questions.
Yeah, no, good point, and that's nice for us. Like, indeed, I see two cases. I see cases where either we have a customer that has very low like local consumption, or none. It's just a greenfield installation. Then it's just a black and white scenario, and we don't really need grid data. But if there's a customer with significant local consumption, it's very much easier to have the local consumption also integrated into the Eniris Smart Grid One, because that makes it easier for us as an optimizer as well. We can just send a separate set point that says local self-consumption, and that works perfectly, because you can always locally regulate it better than we can do it in the cloud, because there's always, indeed, as you said, some delay. So that works. That's where I think this cloud versus local, I think if you want to regulate on self-consumption, better to do this locally. It just makes more sense and is faster in the response. All right, thanks, Bart. That was very clarifying. Then Elias, like, okay, we just talked 5 to 10 minutes about like how to set it up, but like, why would they want to curtail their solar installation, right? That's
that's a very good question. Especially during solar months, you have a lot of negative prices because there's an excess of solar energy. And when there's a lot of solar energy, prices drop. So year by year, we saw the prices dropping during solar hours. And latest years, and especially also this year, there are a lot of negative prices, even record high negative prices. So we see that our customers who are not steering assets could receive an injection, a cost for injection. So that's something that you want to avoid, of course. So everybody with solar installations, big injection customers, they want to have their injection steered to get value again. So they invested in a solar installation where they want value. So the assets will be steered on different markets to create value for injection again.
Okay, that's nice. And can you give some numbers, like what difference can that make?
Yeah, you also have different types of behavior or steering, let's say. So later today we'll also publish a solar curtailment web article. So that will be also very insightful. A lot of installations are not steered today. Then you can steer on day ahead, but it will create imbalance effect for the supplier, so that's not optimal. And then you also have parties that go full imbalance, but then you will need to curtail a lot of percentage of the time. And with our beehive curtailment, we will minimize the amount of volume that needs to be curtailed, and in that way we create more value doing a lot of hours. So
Okay.
the goal is to curtail as as a latest option. So to produce as much as possible, of course.
Yeah, okay, that I understand. Maybe, yeah, just going back to my numbers question, like
Okay.
money wise, like what does that mean for a customer? Like I
Yeah.
saw that like average average let's say amount of money if you just let your solar installation produce on the Belpex market. If you have just a contract, the best contract you can get with a plus €0 per megawatt hour markup from your supplier, then you would have like about 45 euros, I think, up to this point on an average income from your solar installation. I think, yeah, in practice it will be lower, and because most suppliers charge at least a small fee for having handling that injection volume. Like, how much euro per megawatt hour extra could you earn from these from adding your solar installation in that way, or like optimizing it that way?
If you're not steering, we saw a lot of months that you will get a negative Belpex even, because a lot of SMEs, small and big companies, they inject mostly during the weekends, so their injection profile, the value is not really big on the Belpex market. So I would say between -10 and plus 20 euros per megawatt hour without steering.
Okay.
And if we steer assets, we see about 50 euros per megawatt hour for solar injection as a value in different solar months. So that makes it very interesting again. And
Okay.
that's a mix of day ahead and mix of imbalance. So we get the best of both worlds. We get income from day ahead for the end customer and also from the imbalance market.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's interesting. And then I wanted to pick up on the second point that you made, and you said there's basically three cases of potential curtailment, just curtailing on the day ahead, combining like day ahead steering with like imbalance market optimization. Then you also mentioned like full imbalance market. Could you maybe dive a little bit deeper on these? Like, why would you do just day ahead, or like what are the cases when would you say like which one is preferable?
Yeah, I think Beehive is always preferable. It's a bit too easy. But like
commercial talk. Yeah.
no, not commercial talk, but day ahead steering. If you're doing day ahead steering without your supplier is knowing it, then you will create an imbalance on its portfolio or on your asset. So it's not optimal. And you have two types of imbalance steering in the market. So you have full imbalance steering, that are suppliers that are not that advanced, let's say, in steering, and they nominate all of the time a zero level, and in that way they sell all of their electricity on the imbalance market.
Yeah.
But you get an imbalance risk in that way, because every time imbalance gets negative, you need to curtail, and we see that you need to curtail 30-40% of the time.
Okay.
If you do full imbalance steering, so you lose a lot of volume. And we go for the day ahead positive values. When when day ahead value gets negative, then we go for the imbalance market. And only when both markets are negative, we need to curtail. So instead of 30% or 40% curtailment, we only need to curtail 10% of the time. So curtailment is important, but it's only the latest option. And we are looking hard to find value in solar in both markets, and that goes good.
Okay, nice, thanks. Maybe Bart, you've been in the energy market for a while now, since 2018, active with Eniris. Like, if you also look a little bit further, and we talked a lot about like now today with this day ahead and imbalance markets. Today, I think still a lot of the solar installations are being optimized in that way. Maybe an open question, like how do you look at it maybe a couple of years from now on, because I see you also maybe value in the imbalance market dropping, so wondering like what do you think is the future for, in this case specifically, like solar curtailment? Will it still happen in 3-4 years? Will it happen more? Will it happen less? Interesting.
It will absolutely happen. It will more and more happen. The thing in which what I believe is that the optimization will focus more and more for companies on the behind the meter scenario.
Mhm.
And then for energy companies, it will be about balancing their portfolio more and more and being able to use flex, these decentralized assets in a way to optimize a portfolio, and not per se that it is a one-on-one reflection of the energy market as it is. People,
Mhm.
I get these questions a lot of times when, for example, they have a program of the imbalance market. They have an energy contract that is related to the imbalance market, but it is actually a passive imbalance market contract, right? It's an optimization of the energy supplier.
Yeah.
Then they don't have any clue of what is happening. They see the energy prices dropping, but maybe for the energy supply, it makes sense actually to not curtail at that moment.
Yeah.
And that makes it really difficult for people a lot of time. But I am a strong believer that this is actually the best scenario for the energy supplier, for the end customer as well, to get some value out of these assets as much as possible. And then it will become also more and more a thing where multiple markets are interesting for the energy company and to let you participate in this. It is just for us, for the three of us, a thing in which we make it really clear and state it really clear towards the customer how these revenues were created actually, right?
Yeah.
You can't just bullshit them. They really need to know in which markets did you participate. In a way, if you really would like to deep dive, it should be possible,
Mhm.
but it will be more and more complex for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, no, good point. That's, I mean, I think that connects really well with what we're doing here with B. I think with the Beehive solution that we
Yeah,
that is done here, I think it works really well because there is really transparency on where the revenues are coming from, and I get your point to that, Bart. That's indeed, it's not always the case. And it's sometimes hard as an end consumer to know like where is your money, where like there is savings shared, like, but how much, so that's interesting to know. Maybe Elias, you wanted to pick up on something too?
yeah, if possible. Bart was telling about what's good for the supplier, what's good for the end customer, and we see that with a lot of parties, when you steer, that's not always the same. So if you have a passive imbalance contract, or let's say the group portfolio imbalance of the supplier, and you're steering an asset, then the supplier will often steer in favor of its own portfolio and not in favor of the end customer. So that's, I think, the main problem in the current market. So we tackle that by steering individually. So end customer specific, we steer their assets in function of them to create value for them with a profit share. So I think that's the only way to create value in a transparent way to individually optimize locations.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Elias. Thanks for clarifying that. All right. I'll bring up a second. So, for me, kind of the conclusion of the solar installation case at the moment is that if you have really a solar installation today, a larger one, I think it makes very much sense to optimize it on day ahead and imbalance market. It can bring in today's market much more revenue than just letting it produce on day ahead or only curtailing on the day ahead market. So that's and Elias, you shared some numbers there on how much to be what kind of revenue you can expect. I think it was around 50 euros per megawatt hour to produce with your solar installation, where normally we've seen much lower numbers lately. All right, then I wanted to highlight a second case, one where we're optimizing a battery system and a PV system together. Often what we see today actually is that you have a CNI customer, an industrial customer that puts a battery of a couple of hundred kilowatt hours, like usually half a C, as they say, so like a 2-hour battery capacity. into the system. And basically, similar system as with the PV system, we go into forecasting the consumption, the injection, and then scheduling in the battery, scheduling in the solar already on the day-ahead market, and then during the day further optimizing on the imbalance market, where where there can be additional potential revenues. Sometimes trading off a bit between day ahead and imbalance, depending on the positions there that you take. Maybe coming back to the point that we made earlier, just wanted to highlight the savings graph that's in the bottom right corner here. That's really how we try to make it as crystal clear as possible for customers, like where their value is coming from. You will have a table where we have simulated cost. That is the cost you would pay to your energy supplier if you actually wouldn't have the battery, or wouldn't have this, or wouldn't have curtailed the solar installation, both on it's called here day ahead, imbalance, and then grid/tax. So commodity side, then the imbalance market, then the grid/the taxes, and then you have the actual cost. So what kind of savings, or what was the actual cost that you still paid on the commodity market, money that you gained on the imbalance market, and then how much grids and taxes extra were triggered, or in this case, there were some extra grid costs triggered, but they were more than offset by the savings. If you zoom into this, you will see about let's say a customer that would normally pay about 2,500 euro this month, that now has an actual energy cost of 900 euros, as I said. So gaining money on the day ahead and on the imbalance market, and then paying a bit extra for the grid and the taxes. So trying to make a full case here on our end, also like mapping fully what kind of grid costs these customers are, is really important to make a full picture. All right, so maybe coming back to the things we talked about before, like the technical side of things. What is it more complex? Is it similar for you to integrate also a battery system with your local controller? Can you maybe clarify on that?
In general, integrating battery systems from our perspective as an energy management manufacturer is more difficult, in a way that there are many battery systems in the market these days. And so like it's a very fragmented market, although we do like a good we try to do our best and try to integrate them all, but of course for a lot of these battery systems, it's one of their first batteries in a specific market, and so you end up with, for a lot of installations, the timeline for integration, where for PV curtailment, this is legacy. This is already integrated, and then the typical integration, like from a technical point of view, is always Modbus TCP or RS485. So in a way, that's not so much different. And then all of these systems can also have or don't have specific technicalities. So it's much more immature, this market of batteries, although it's like now the thing, right? Having battery systems and installing battery systems. You can see it reflecting on the integration process.
Okay, so as you said, it's more because the market is more nascent, or like it's in the early stage, that it's really more complex for you, because you really need to figure out, like, okay, this battery is being put into place with a customer, they're asking for an integration. Will there be more batteries built of this? Like, how do you evaluate?
Exactly. And the market gets a bit overcrowded with like lots of batteries, and instead of like the limited list of PV inverter brands you have.
How do you make that assessment as Eniris? Like, when do you decide, like, okay, we will integrate with this battery type?
It is a win-win situation you should create, right? So for us, it has to have some economical value,
Mhm.
business value, but the same applies to them, right? If they just only sell one of the specific battery system, it might not be so interesting for us, and for them as well. So yeah, it has to have some relevance. Though the good thing is of course that we are operational in other countries as well. So sometimes you see like a brand which is maybe appearing like only a few times here in Flanders,
Mhm.
for example, but then in Sweden they are quite popular, and we have already integrated them. So
Okay. Nice.
um, yeah,
So there, the European scale really helps you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's helping us a lot indeed. But
Nice.
there are many brands of battery systems,
And
and
how do
also
you?
like for the large ones, you end up sometimes with like unknown brands to cover.
Okay, nice. Okay, and then how like because okay, making the first integration is one thing, but then as
Hmm.
being a software player ourselves, we know it already.
Hmm.
Like in making the first integration is not necessarily the issue, but it's more the keeping them up to date and maintaining them. Like that's just a full time job for a team of people at Eniris, or how should we see that?
In the very beginning, you should keep an eye on the system, right? But then after a while, this is also something on which we're putting more and more effort.
Okay.
Is um, and will be released pretty soon. Is an alerting system in which if you have an outage of many of those systems, you get informed actually as soon as possible. You can patch it. Of course, we have also contact with a lot of these manufacturers ourselves. It is a hard thing to let them commit on letting you know about firmware updates. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't believe that there are like any company who have like for 80% of their portfolio like this contract in place. It's also every year they come with like a new design, a new model. um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's a bit more. Yeah, it's a new area,
No.
right? This
Yeah,
this battery
makes sense.
world.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's a world. All right. We already have some questions in, so don't hesitate to bring in more. I'll just quickly jump back to Elias for some, and I'll keep asking some questions, and then we can dive into them. So if you have any other questions, we're not ignoring you. I see them already coming in, so thanks for that. Feel free to add some more. But Elias, before we dive into the questions, like I quickly highlighted more like how this battery MPV case was being steered. Is there any more context that you want to give here specifically?
Yeah, I think battery steering can be challenging. I think a lot of parties in the market are a bit struggling with it. And one thing to take in mind are the grid cost, of course. The grid costs are pretty expensive, and you also have a different type of grid costs. So it's very good that we have integrated all of those grid costs now into the platform. Yeah, you have grid costs per kilowatt for the excess power, but you also have grid costs per kilowatt hour. And while we steer, I think in the current markets, but it will remain, it's important to go for self-consumption first, and then look at extra opportunities on day ahead, on imbalance markets, and so on, to further optimize. So I think self-consumption is also always a very important one in behind the meter flex. And yeah, it's important to show it to the end customer what's happening on the site and why it's happening, and also to show the reason behind the nominations, the forecasts, and kind of stuff, to be as much transparent as possible.
All right. And then on the why, like on why are like for me, it's interesting to see that like 2 years ago, definitely okay, you had some people installing home batteries, but on the industrial side, I didn't see that much companies really also already putting in the money to install a battery. The last year, it's really been an evolution there. I see more and more battery systems being installed. What do you think triggers this? Why are more and more customers of yours installing batteries?
Yeah, I think it's for two main reasons. It's partly economically driven. People want to have an interesting payback time, but also a bit emotionally driven, because people want price security. People want to want to own their energy bits. They don't want to sell their solar energy at a cheap price, so that makes sense to keep that energy as much as possible with them. So it's about economic reasons, but also a bit emotionally.
Yeah, we see that sometimes with customers when we're doing like a optimization of the steering signal, that it's like, but you could also do self-consumption. Yeah, sure, but we're trying to maximize the financial returns for you, and then it's like, yes, but I want to be really independent from the grid, which I think is also like an interesting reason why a lot of people are choosing these
Indeed.
batteries. Nice. All right, cool. And on the good business case, like I think I assume that also means that investment price has gone down a lot, as everybody knows. Do you see that trend still continuing, like over the last months and stuff? Is it still getting cheaper?
So the demand for batteries is raising a lot. So is the production. So I think it will keep on going down. Next year the prices of batteries will become cheaper. I think it was about 30% that I heard lately on one of the conferences we went typically for this time of year. Energy market prices last month are a bit less interesting for imbalance markets, but maybe it will be compensated with the lower investment costs for future projects. But I think the energy market, it's especially the flexibility market in Belgium. There is a battle going on between solar production and battery production. Once more and more batteries will be installed, the business case of batteries will go down a bit, but the business case for solar will get more interesting again, and then we will install more solar again. So it's a battle between those two, and it will be beneficial for Belgium grid to be more independent from neighbor countries.
All right. Thanks for providing that context, Elias. Right. Let's move on to the questions. We've got about 12 minutes left here, so we've received 3 questions already. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to type them in. But 3 questions, that's actually the perfect number. That means one for each of us. I'll try to divide it a bit according to like I'll try to divide it really like a dictator. So the first one, I think, like what's part of the imbalance market in Belgium, Elias? I think it's a question about the markets. Is the FCRA, is that FCRF or MFRR? Do you include intraday in your modeling? I think that's really a market question. So I will pass that to you if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. So you have different markets in the energy market in Belgium. Starting with the forward markets, you can click or hedge your electricity or gas price on a future price. You cannot really steer on it. So we have the ahead prices afterwards, which we steer on, and then you have intraday markets and imbalance markets. So if we steer on batteries and solar today, it's mostly on day ahead and imbalance markets because there is a lot of value there. For bigger projects, standalone cases, for instance, then you have the reserve markets of Elia. So when the market effect is there to look for a balance between production and offtake, and to get a stable grid. And if it's not the case after the imbalance market, then Elia will activate those reserve markets. And FCR, AVR are also interesting markets. But we see it more for big standalone projects.
Yeah.
Like for wind turbines, we are steering in the next weeks and months. We also look at AVR markets.
Yeah, and the markets are linked, of course. If you see like the ancillary services market, the more they get activated, the higher the passive imbalance market price will rise, of course. They are of course coupled. If there's a big imbalance, Elia has to activate a lot of ancillary services, so imbalance price will go up. All right. Then I'll take the second question about grid tax cost. Does this include peak and capacity cost? Is this taken into account when providing a steering signal? Yes, it is. to be from an optimizer point of view, having a monthly peak and let's say capacity tariff is not the simplest, but we do take it into account because, like, of course, you're optimizing on different time horizons. Every action you take is like all of the other parameters are like a cost you trigger for or like a benefit you gain for the moment. The capacity tariff is evaluated on a monthly basis, so it provides a challenge for us, but we can handle it. So really this peak and this access power costs, and in Belgium usually for industrial customers it's the both, and it's 50% on access power, 50% on the actual peak that you have. So those two are taken into account when we steer on an asset.
Yeah, in fact, they're taken into account into two ways. So once with the steering from Beehive Companion, but also with Eniris, it's in a hardware setup, the max grid consumption. So
Yeah.
there's no way that we can overrule the access power limits, and especially because the cost of getting over your access power is really expensive. We don't want to do that. We also don't enlarge the grid access power anymore unless the client really wants to. But it's case by case looked into. But we try to keep the access power as low as possible.
All right. Thanks for adding that, Elias. And then I get a question for you from Kenneth, and then I will pass it to Bart. How because you already talked a bit about that, Bart. Like, how can a customer be sure or validate that the management of his assets is being done in his best interest and not only in the best interest of his supplier? And you talked already about this, about this offering this transparency. Can you maybe give some tips on how to do that?
I think that's one thing that you will see that in the Companion environment, right? But then aside from this, like, it depends, of course, on how you actually see the battery system, right? If the battery system is used for just like making money from an energy market, then it is just about what is the cost per cycle and what was the income per cycle, and you have to compare them. But if the battery is more especially used to maintain your grid limits, to increase your grid capacity, basically to do peak shaving, then of course you should look at this and prioritize this first. And we have several ways, and I think more and more in the future we'll see also, and that's one of our newest features, is that you will end up with virtual splitting your battery system, maybe, and then keeping one part mainly responsible for doing the peak shaving topic, and then the other part then maybe to earn some money on an energy market. That's my takeaway.
Interesting. No, that's that virtual splitting is an interesting. It's an interesting development in the market. I see it also more and more with larger companies where there's often third parties that invest in the battery system, and then they have like this deal with the local company that a part of the battery is being used to optimize locally for the company, and they generate benefits in that way, and then the third party can use a part of the battery system to optimize on ancillary services on different energy markets. So I think there it's a good point, Bart, and I see that more and more, or like at least being more and more discussed or questions asked to us about it. So that's something that we also support. Then maybe Bert asks what is the average capex for a battery system in euros per kilowatt hour? Maybe Elias, is that something that you can answer, given that I think you talk to most people who recently bought a battery? So I think something that you can answer.
Yeah. I think it's pretty difficult to put a number on it because you have batteries from 100 kilowatts or home batteries, and a large one, of course. So for home batteries in the past, it was about 1,000 euros per kilowatt hour. Now already it's about 700 euros per kilowatt hour. So it becomes real cheaper. Was also needed to make home batteries profitable, but I think we're at that level now. And then for bigger installations, it can go to 300 euros per kilowatt hour. really, I'm not the expert on battery pricing, but I can bring you in contact with some people who do, let's say.
That's that's good. So Bert, reach out to Elias if you want an exact question. And then there is a question from Dieter. Dieter is apparently making a business case very specifically about optimizing a battery on the day ahead market with 1.5 battery cycles a day for 300 days a year. So it's a very specific question to answer here from calculating my hoofdrekenen, my head calculation isn't that good anymore that I can automatically give you an answer. But I don't know, Elias or Bart, if you want to weigh in on this question. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, day ahead trading is really interesting for a battery. For instance, during solar months, you have often a high price during the morning and a high price during the evening. So it's a simple setup that you fill up your battery during the solar hours, and that you, if you don't need that energy for yourself in the evening, you sell that energy in the evening back again to the grid. But to put a number on it, for a megawatt, 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt hour system, the market is rapidly changing. Like we used to say 300,000 euros per megawatt. I think that's not relevant anymore. In the current market, what do you see as current market? Of course, if you look at the latest month, there is not a lot of value in battery steering, but it will for sure come up again with the heating season that's coming. So I think about 150 or 200k per megawatt is a more accurate number.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And then maybe to help you with your calculation, Dieter, just wanted to bring up. I'll just bring up some numbers from our platform. So here you can just see the if you are specifically talking about the day ahead market, you can see that the average daily spread from January until October now was 125 euros per megawatt hour. So that's the spread in the market at the moment in the day ahead market, or that's the average spread. So that I think using those numbers can help you to make that calculation. All right, then I'll stop sharing my screen again. Then I think those were all the questions that we got from the audience. I see one more from Gauthier and Amélie. Okay, so two more questions. So Gauthier says, considering the actual market evolution, which best revenue stream will be the major one versus today? So which one will be major? I'll give my 2 cents, and I'll leave Bart and Elias to think about it, so they can also give an answer. For me, I think if you look at the markets, I will just use the thinking of which market is the deepest. So ancillary services and imbalance market are less deep. I would say they are a couple of hundred of megawatts. So that means the more flexibility will come online, the faster value in those markets will erode. That's just logical, I think. So I assume that more best revenue streams will come from local optimization, so behind the meter, like self-consumption, and also the day-ahead market, which is much deeper in that case, where we're talking really about gigawatts and then not anymore about hundreds of megawatts. That said, I also strongly believe that local congestion markets, which are already big in the Netherlands, for example, will also play a role in Belgium. So we are a Fluvius flexibility FSP, as they say. So we also test in that market, and I think it can be a big chunk of it can be a big revenue driver in the future too. So Elias, Bart, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
It's basically exactly how I see it indeed.
I think we are fully aligned.
Okay, great. And then one question from Amélie. She asks, what is the impact of day-ahead prices on quarterly, hourly basis? Anybody else wants to?
From an EMS perspective, I can tell you it's becoming more and more difficult for people to do the trading themselves, right? Turning on or off a device. So that makes it for us like, or makes our product a more interesting product, right? At that time.
Yes. All right, that's a good point, Bart.
But
That's good.
okay, I get the question, right? What what is it more becoming an attractive market or not? Are the different? But I don't
Yeah.
have a clue about this, how it is
I think,
actually nowadays. Maybe Elias, I see.
Yeah, I think it moves some value, I think, from the imbalance markets back to the day ahead markets.
Exactly.
But yeah, you can still steer on the day ahead market as well. But yeah, some of the value goes back to the day ahead market in that way.
Yeah.
All right.
And the big day ahead market is a bigger pool than the imbalance market, so it's a bit more difficult to catch that value with your battery.
Nice. All right, thanks. Those are some good final answers. Thanks. I'll remember, Bart, that's a selling point that people can't plug and unplug their solar installation within the 15 minutes anymore. It becomes too complex.
You can, but it's a difficulty.
That's a full day job.
But a full-time job on it.
That's a nice one. So all right, so we are 1 minute over time. So I think we got quite some questions. So it was a very interesting webinar. Thank you very much, Elias. Thank you very much, Bart, for participating. And then I'll end it. I'll end it here. Thank you very much, and thank you for
You're
watching.
welcome. Let's see.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.